Hi folks, it's Chuck from the Brownie Camera page, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about Baby Brownies. These are one of my favorite Brownie cameras. If I had to say what one of my favorite Brownie cameras were, they're all my favorite. Um, but this one is really interesting. It's small. It uses 127 film, and yet it produces surprisingly large negatives that are suitable for contact printing. And in fact, at the time of this camera was new, that's how the prints for this camera were returned to people. They were contact printed. They were rarely enlarged. Even though surprisingly, this camera takes, if it's in good shape, uh, is capable of taking extremely sharp photographs. And so this was first produced in the United States in 1934 and discontinued manufacture in 1941. And then it was taken back into production in the UK in 1948 after a 7-year lapse of production, where it was produced until 1952. And it was quite a popular camera, both in the United States and in the UK. It has the basically regular meniscus lens with a rotary shutter. There's no records as to how many of these were made. And the original price of the US model I know was $1. Here's the finder on it. And it's kind of a cool camera. This was designed by a man named Walter Teague, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, who designed quite a few not quite a few, who designed a few cameras for Kodak. He was quite a famous designer. He died in 1960. He was quite a famous designer in the 30s and 40s. I believe he also designed the Ford building, if I'm not mistaken. I might be mistaken about that. But other cameras that he designed for Kodak were the Bow Brownies, which was the number 2 Bow Brownie and number 2A Bow Brownie, which are incredibly collectible now, in good shape. They can fetch $400 or $500. And the Bantam Camera, which was another Art Deco, much like this one. Teague was an Art Deco designer for much of his designing career. This came in 2 models. All of them were exactly like this. And if they weren't exactly like this, for I should say from 1936 to 1939, some models had a B button for bulb to keep the shutter open. They were made in the U.S. again from 1936 to 1939 for export to the UK and to Europe. And then the button after World War II was added to the UK models from 1951 and 1952. Now, this particular camera, I thought you might find interesting. When I was 9 years old in 1962, now I'm showing my age, I was looking around my father's World War II chest and found this particular camera. And in it was a roll that was already rolled up, so it was fairly light tight. There was a roll of film in it, and so I waited until my father came home from work that day. I remember it like it was yesterday, and confronted him with the camera, and he said, "Yeah, that was the camera I took around with me in World War II." Now, my father was quite a humble man, and he didn't talk about World War II very much. But he was a lieutenant in the tank corps. He commanded 4 or 5 tanks, and So we looked at the film, and he said, "Well, we can try to get it processed, but it's been in the attic. I doubt it will." Uh, Let me turn that beeping stuff off. Uh, he doubted that it would work. Um, and but I was all excited. He goes, "Well, we'll get it processed," and sure enough, when it came back, it was a roll of black and white printed film of my father standing around with his army buddies around his tank, and he told me that was in Belgium. And he was stationed in Belgium, and I live in the Netherlands now, and here in the Netherlands for the last part of his tour, for lack of a better way to put it. And then he gave me this camera. So this was the second camera that I had. I had uh, I had a Brownie Hawkeye camera also, and I was already interested in photography. So that's the history of this camera. Now I'm going to show you a little something with this camera of what to be careful for when you buy a camera like this, especially a Bakelite body. This is called plastic Bakelite. One thing to be careful of, and let me see if I can show you up close, is careful of the edges here. You can hopefully see how this is broken. When I've shot with this camera, I've shot maybe 20 or 25 rolls with this. I've always had to put tape around the edge until I got a new model or a newer one of this, or a model that did not have that broken edge. That's very common on these cameras and on Bakelite cameras in general, that the edges tend to break off. You drop it or something and it just breaks off. This one, of course, had been through World War II. And so it's actually still usable. The shutter works very well. However, I've retired this camera and it's on my shelf now. I also have another one that I use once in a while. I might shoot 5 or 6 rolls with my other one a year. And I also recently picked this one up off of eBay, and this was sent from the UK. And the reason I'm going to show you this one is to illustrate what a perfect model is, and model of this camera, and sometimes the fun of buying these cameras that some people have kept as treasures. This is how it came to me, in a nice box, and when I opened it, this is about a week or two ago, I realized immediately that I did not think that this camera was used at all. You can see along the edges here that there's absolutely no wear whatsoever. The shutter works perfectly. Even the viewfinder doesn't. It shows it shows aging, but it could have been aging in this box. But also, additionally in this box, and this is the fun part, I get goosebumps when this happens. There was a note that said, "Arlie gave me this camera before we were married, about 1939." Now that camera was not. This note was not written to me. It was written to remember the circumstances of this camera. So I'm starting to think that this camera was given to someone and was put away in a chest somewhere, and someone has found it, possibly after that person is retired or has died, and sold it to me. I also think this was unused because when I opened it, there was no spool in it. That also leads me to believe that the camera was never used. So let's go over how to load this great camera. Well, let me first, there's like a little catch switch down here. You move that. And again, with bakelite cameras, be careful with how you use it. If you bang it, you might crack the edge. And so you put that there. 127. This takes 127 film, and the film size is really nice and big. This is 2.5 inches by 1 5/8 inches, so it's nice big negatives. And it's 127 film, and which is still, believe it or not, available. I'll put the link down below of places you can get it. And so this is going to be the take-up spool. You can see one edge has a slot and one edge does not. And so you want the slot to go with the winding knob. So put the spool in, it snaps into place, and you make sure that it's in place, and you get the slot in position, ready to go. Let's see if I can. There's a slot for the film to go in. Next, I have my roll of 127. I've already got it, the paper off of it. This is an EFCA R100. I shoot 100 film in a camera like this because the shutter is usually quite slow. This is probably 1/50th of a second, possibly even 1/40th of a second. So we don't want to use real fast film. I do re-roll film with T-Max 400, and sometimes other films, depending. I'll slice 120 down to 127 size. But in this case, I'm going to use straight EFCA 100. So now I carefully put that over here so that the paper is going to roll on the outside as you go around the camera. That means that the film is on the inside facing the shutter. Then you will take it. You let's see if I can get this up close. You put the leader right into the slot. It goes right in, if you can see that. Then you carefully and slowly wind it so that it catches, and get the film into the middle of the spool. It usually will anyways. And then you wind it so that you make sure that it's advancing before you close the camera. Then we'll put that together. Lock the camera so it's ready to go. And then let's see if I can successfully show you where to stop. So you roll. You actually have to roll it quite a ways, and you'll start seeing some arrows. Okay, let's see if I can get right in here. And you keep rolling. You'll see some dots, at least on EFCA, and there's the number 1. That means that there's film across the film plane, and this camera is ready to shoot. I'm going to shoot 1 roll with this camera. I like to shoot at least 1 roll with every camera that I get, but this camera seems sort of special. And when I'm done with the roll, I'm going to print it up, and I'm going to put that camera right back in here, and it's going to just go on my display shelf. And so that's the Baby Brownie camera. So guys, load up your cameras, go out, and have some fun. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.